A black girl violinist is humiliated in front of everyone during what should have been a proud moment. Her heart breaks and the room falls silent. But when she tells her dad what happened, he refuses to stand by. What he does next changes everything, not just for her, but for their entire community. Before we dive into this powerful story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Emily Johnson stepped off the school bus, the doors closing behind her with a hiss. Clutching her violin case tightly, she began the short walk to her family's brownstone in Harlem. The autumn leaves crunched under her feet, but the usual joy she felt from their sound was absent today. As she trudged up the steps to her front door, her shoulders sagged under an unseen weight. Her father, Michael, glanced up from the kitchen table as he heard the door open. "Hey, sunshine, how was rehearsal?" he called out, expecting to see her usual bright smile. Emily paused in the hallway, her back turned to him. "It was fine," she replied softly, the tremor in her voice betraying her words. Michael frowned, setting down his coffee mug. "Emmy, what's wrong?" he asked, rising from his chair. She shrugged, still not meeting his gaze. "Nothing, just tired, I guess." Michael walked over to her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. At 12 years old, Emily was already nearly as tall as her father. She had her mother's eyes, deep brown and full of emotion, but today they were clouded and distant. "Talk to me," he urged softly. Emily swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the handle of her violin case. "It's just, rehearsal was tough," she mumbled. Before Michael could respond, the door opened again and Aunt Sarah breezed in, arms full of groceries. "Well, if it isn't my favorite niece," she exclaimed, then immediately sensed the heavy atmosphere. "What's going on?" Emily took a step back. "I think I'll go practice in my room," she said quickly, hurrying up the stairs before either adult could stop her. Michael exchanged a worried glance with his sister. "Something happened at rehearsal," he said quietly. Upstairs, Emily closed her bedroom door and set her violin case on the bed. She traced her fingers over the worn stickers that decorated it, little mementos from concerts and competitions she had loved. A tear slipped down her cheek as she remembered how excited she'd been when she was accepted into the Midtown Youth Orchestra, one of the most prestigious programs in New York City. But today had been different. Earlier that afternoon, Emily had arrived at the grand concert hall where the orchestra rehearsed. The towering building always filled her with awe. As she took her seat in the violin section, she noticed Maestro Williams watching her intently. He was an imposing figure with silver hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to pierce right through her. "All right, from the top," he announced, tapping his baton. They began to play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the familiar notes filling the air. Emily lost herself in the music, her bow dancing across the strings. But halfway through the movement, Maestro Williams slammed his baton on the stand. "Stop, stop," he shouted, his gaze fixed on Emily. "Second violin, you're dragging the tempo." She felt her cheeks flush as all eyes turned toward her. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize." He cut her off sharply. "Perhaps if you spent more time practicing and less time, well, never mind. Let's take it from measure 32. The rehearsal resumed, but the maestro's cutting remarks didn't stop. Each time, his criticisms were veiled but pointed, always directed at Emily. She noticed the whispers among some of the other students, and a few of the parents seated at the back exchanged glances. During the break, Emily sat alone picking at her lunch. A fellow violinist, Claire, approached hesitantly. "Are you okay?" she asked. Emily forced a smile. "Yeah, just a rough day." Claire bit her lip. Don't take it personally. Maestro Williams can be tough. Yeah, Emily sighed. Tough. As they returned for the second half of rehearsal, Maestro Williams announced, "Before we continue, I want to remind everyone that excellence requires the right fit, musically and otherwise." Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She knew he was talking about her. At the end of the session, as she packed up her violin, Maestro Williams approached. "Miss Johnson, a word," he said curtly. She looked up nervously. "Yes, sir?" He sighed, feigning sympathy. Perhaps the Midtown Youth Orchestra isn't the best place for you. There are other programs that might be more, suitable for your talents." "I don't understand," Emily stammered. "Did I do something wrong?" He gave a tight-lipped smile. "It's about maintaining a certain image, Emily. We strive for a level of classic elegance here. You might find a better fit elsewhere." Suddenly, ethnic echoes from the low ceiling to the left of frantic. Breath, emotion tissellated through her upturned mind. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "I just want to play," she whispered. He straightened his jacket. "Of course you do, and I'm sure there's a place for that." As he walked away, Emily stood there, feeling small and unseen. The other students avoided her gaze as they left, and she was left alone in the grand hall that suddenly felt cold and unwelcoming. Back in her bedroom, Emily opened her violin case and lifted out her instrument. She placed it under her chin and drew the bow across the strings, but the sound that emerged was shaky and hollow. The music that once brought her joy now echoed her sadness. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Emmy, can I come in?" her father asked gently. She hesitated before quietly replying, "Okay." Michael entered the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "Wire, you know you can tell me anything," he said softly. She looked at him, her eyes welling up. "Dad, why don't they want me there?" He felt a pang in his chest. "What do you mean?" "Maestro Williams, he keeps hinting that I don't belong in the orchestra, that I don't fit their image." Michael's jaw tightened. "Did he say that to you?" She nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "He said I should find another place that's more suitable for me, but all I want is to play, Dad." He took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. "Emily, sometimes people judge others unfairly. It has nothing to do with your talent." She wiped her cheeks. "Is it because I'm one of the only black students there?" He looked into her earnest eyes, wishing he could shield her from this reality. "It shouldn't be, but some people have closed minds." "It just hurts," she whispered. "I work so hard, and it feels like it's never enough." He pulled her into a gentle hug. "You are more than enough. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Aunt Sarah appeared in the doorway, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "I think it's time we had a talk about this," she said firmly. They all moved to the living room, where the evening light cast long shadows. Sarah sat across from Emily, her gaze steady. "Honey, this isn't the first time Maestro Williams has acted this way. I've heard stories from other parents." Emily looked up. "You have?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, he's been known to discourage students who don't fit his narrow view of what the orchestra should look like." Michael leaned forward. "Then we need to do something about it." "But what can we do?" Emily asked quietly. "He's so respected. No one will believe us." Sarah reached out and took her hand. "We start by standing together. You are not alone in this." Michael nodded in agreement. "We'll reach out to other parents, gather their experiences. Maybe we can bring this to the school board or the media." Emily looked between them, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "You really think it will help?" "Change doesn't happen overnight," Sarah said gently. "But every step we take makes a difference." Michael smiled softly at his daughter. "And no matter what, we support you. If playing the violin makes you happy, then we'll make sure you can continue." Emily felt a warmth spread in her chest. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That night, as she lay in bed, Emily stared at the ceiling, thoughts swirling in her mind. The sadness was still there, but it was now accompanied by a flicker of determination. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing: she wasn't going to give up her music without a fight. The next morning, the Johnson household buzzed with quiet activity. Michael made phone calls to other parents while Sarah drafted emails and gathered information. Emily watched them, a mix of gratitude and anxiety settling in her stomach. As she prepared to leave for school, Michael handed her a packed lunch. "Have a good day, and remember, we're here for you." She nodded, managing a small smile. "I know. Thanks, Dad." Stepping outside, Emily took a deep breath. The city streets were alive with the usual hustle and bustle, but today she felt a little stronger. Clutching her violin case, she headed toward the future. "I'm shortened. It's been so crazy to live with Wade. I think previously I was shut down." The halls of Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School bustled with the energy of students swapping books from lockers and sharing snippets of weekend plans. Emily navigated the crowded corridors, her violin case slung over her shoulder. She approached her locker, spinning the combination lock absent-mindedly. "Hey, Emily," a voice called out. She turned to see her friend Jasmine approaching with a bright smile. Jasmine was in the school band, playing the flute, and they often shared sheet music and stories about their rehearsals. "Hi, Jasmine," Emily replied, attempting a smile. Are you okay? You seem a bit, off today," Jasmine observed, tilting her head. Emily hesitated. "Just some things going on with the orchestra," she admitted. Before Jasmine could inquire further, the bell rang. "We can talk at lunch?" Jasmine offered. "Sure," Emily nodded, grateful for her friend's concern. In math class, Emily tried to focus on the equations on the board, but her mind kept drifting back to Maestro Williams' words, the subtle disdain in his voice, the way he made her feel invisible, yet painfully exposed at the same time. She wondered if she'd ever truly belong in that world. Miss Johnson," Mr. Patel's voice broke through her thoughts. She snapped back to reality. "Yes?" "Could you solve the equation on the board?" he asked gently. Emily glanced at the complex algebraic expression. "Oh, right. She quickly worked through the steps in her mind. X equals 7. "Correct," Mr. Patel smiled. "Well done." She sank back into her seat, relieved. At least here, her abilities were acknowledged. At lunchtime, Emily and Jasmine sat under a large oak tree in the school courtyard. The autumn breeze carried the scent of warm pretzels from the cafeteria. "So, what's going on?" Jasmine asked between bites of her sandwich. Emily took a deep breath. "It's Maestro Williams. He keeps singling me out during rehearsals. It's like no matter what I do, it's never good enough." Jasmine frowned. That's awful. Have you talked to your parents? Yeah, they're trying to help, but I don't know what can be done, Emily sighed. He's so respected. Who would believe me over him? Jasmine looked thoughtful. You know, my cousin Malik had a similar issue with his soccer coach. The coach always benched him, even though he's one of the best players. Turned out, the coach had a problem with, With what? Emily prompted. Jasmine hesitated. With race. He didn't think black kids fit the image of the team. Emily felt a lump in her throat. Do you think that's what's happening with me? It sounds like it, Jasmine said gently. It's not fair, but maybe if more people knew, something could change. Maybe, Emily murmured, her appetite gone. Meanwhile, back at the Johnson household, Michael sat at the kitchen table, notes scattered before him. He had spent the morning making calls to other parents whose children were in the orchestra. How's it going? Sarah asked, entering the room with a fresh pot of coffee. He rubbed his temples. Mixed results. Some parents are hesitant to talk. They don't want their kids getting involved. Sarah poured him a cup. Fear keeps people silent, but fear won't help Emily. I did speak to Mrs. Ramirez. She said her son, Carlos, had been discouraged from auditioning for a solo. Maestro told him he lacked the sophistication for the part. Oh, that's coded language if I've ever heard it, Sarah said indignantly. Michael nodded. She agreed to meet with us tonight. Maybe if we can gather enough stories, we can present a case to the school board. Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We're doing the right thing. He sighed. I just hate that Emily has to go through this. She's just a kid. She should be enjoying music, not fighting battles. She's strong like her father. Sarah smiled softly. And she's not alone. After school, Emily walked home slowly, dragging her feet. She decided to take the longer route through the park, hoping that tranquility would soothe her troubled mind. She sat on a bench overlooking the pond where ducks glided effortlessly across the water. Mind if I join you? A familiar voice asked. She looked up to see Mr. Thompson, her former music teacher, standing beside the bench. Mr. Thompson, what are you doing here? She asked, surprised. He smiled warmly. I often walk through this park after school. Good for the soul. How have you been? Emily shrugged. I've been better. He sat down beside her. Care to talk about it? She hesitated but felt a surge of trust. It's about the orchestra. Maestro Williams keeps targeting me, making me feel like I don't belong. Mr. Thompson's face grew serious. I've heard similar stories. You're not the first student of color to feel this way under his direction. What, doesn't anyone do anything? Emily asked, frustration edging her voice. Ah, he sighed. The arts can be a wonderful place, but they're not free from prejudice. Sometimes people hide behind tradition to exclude others. I just want to play my music, she said softly. Why does everything have to be so hard? Mr. Thompson looked at her thoughtfully. Emily, you have a gift. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Sometimes, when doors are closed, we have to find our own way in. She looked at him curiously. What do you mean? As it happens, I mentor a group of young musicians every Saturday. It's a diverse group and we focus on all kinds of music, not just the classical repertoire. Would you like to join us? Her eyes lit up briefly before dimming again. I don't know, my parents might not want me to. Think about it, he encouraged. No pressure. She nodded. I will. Thanks, Mr. Thompson. He stood up. Remember, Emily, the world is big, and there are many paths to take. Don't let one obstacle stop you from pursuing your passion. As he walked away, Emily felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was another way. That evening, the Johnson household hosted Mrs. Ramirez and her son, Carlos. The adults sat around the dining table, sharing their experiences. He's been with the orchestra for 2 years, Mrs. Ramirez explained. But lately, Carlos feels like he's being pushed aside. Carlos, a quiet boy with dark, wavy hair, nodded. Maestro Williams always overlooks me when assigning solos, even though I rank high in auditions. Same with Emily, Michael said gravely. Have you talked to the school administration? Sarah asked. Mrs. Ramirez sighed. I tried, but they said there's no evidence of discrimination. They think we're being overly sensitive. Michael clenched his fists. We need more people to come forward. What if we document everything? Sarah suggested. Keep records of incidents, gather testimonies. Carlos spoke up. There's also Sophie Chen. She left the orchestra last semester. Rumor was she had conflicts with the maestro. We should reach out to her, Michael agreed. The more stories we have, the stronger our case. Emily listened from the doorway, feeling a mix of sadness and solidarity. She wasn't alone in this struggle. Stepping into the room, she joined the conversation. Mr. Thompson invited me to join his music group. He said it's a place where everyone is welcome, she announced. Michael looked at her thoughtfully. Do you want to join? I think so, she admitted. Maybe it would help. Mrs. Ramirez smiled warmly. That sounds wonderful. Carlos, perhaps you could join as well? He looked intrigued. I'd like that. Then it's settled, Sarah said with enthusiasm. We'll support our kids in every way we can. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Michael and Sarah continued to reach out to other families, while Emily and Carlos began attending Mr. Thompson's sessions. Held in a community center, the group was a melting pot of young musicians from different backgrounds, all sharing a love for music. At their first session, Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Surrounded by supportive peers and a teacher who valued her abilities, she rediscovered the joy of playing. They experimented with blending classical pieces with jazz and blues influences, creating a sound that was fresh and invigorating. You're a natural leader, Mr. Thompson told her after one rehearsal. Have you considered composing your own music? Emily smiled shyly. I've dabbled a bit, but nothing serious. Well, I'd love to hear what you come up with, he encouraged. Meanwhile, word began to spread about Maestro Williams' discriminatory practices. An article appeared in a local newspaper highlighting the concerns of several families. Though the piece didn't name specific students, it brought attention to the issue. At school, Emily noticed some classmates giving her curious looks, whispering in the hallways. During lunch, Claire approached her table. Emily, I read the article, she began hesitantly. I had no idea you were going through that. It's been tough, Emily admitted. Claire sat down. I wanted to say, I'm sorry if I ever made you feel unwelcome. I guess I was so focused on my own performance that I didn't see what was happening. Emily looked at her, appreciating the sincerity. Thanks, Claire. That means a lot. Some of us have been talking, Claire continued. We want to support you. Maybe we can talk to the administration together. Emily felt a surge of gratitude. I'd like that. One afternoon, as Emily left the community center after rehearsal, she noticed a familiar figure waiting outside, the imposing silhouette of Maestro Williams. Her heart skipped a beat. What was he doing here? "Emily," he called out, his tone unreadable. She considered ignoring him but decided to stand her ground. "Yes, Maestro Williams." He approached her slowly. "I heard you've been participating in alternative musical activities." She straightened her shoulders. "Yes, I have." He arched an eyebrow. "I hope you understand that such distractions can hinder your classical training." She met his gaze firmly. "On the contrary, it's expanding my skills." A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. "Be careful, Miss Johnson. You wouldn't want to jeopardize your future prospects." She felt a chill but refused to look away. "Is there anything else, Maestro?" He narrowed his eyes. "Just a friendly piece of advice." With that, he turned and walked away. As she watched him go, Emily's resolve hardened. She knew now that this was more than just personal bias. He was trying to intimidate her into silence. That evening, Emily recounted the encounter to her father and aunt. "He's stalking you now?" Michael exclaimed angrily. "We should report this," Sarah insisted. "But to whom?" Emily asked. "He hasn't technically done anything illegal." "We can document it," Michael decided. "Every interaction, every incident, we'll compile everything." Sarah nodded. "And we can look into filing a formal complaint. If the school won't listen, perhaps the district will." Emily felt the weight of their concern, but also their unwavering support. "I don't want to cause trouble," she said softly. "Honey, standing up for yourself isn't causing trouble," Sarah assured her. "It's your right." Michael placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "We're in this together. You're not just fighting for yourself, but for others who might be facing the same injustice." She took a deep breath. "Okay, let's do it." As weeks passed, the group's efforts began to gain traction. More families came forward with their stories. The school district announced an investigation into the allegations against Maestro Williams. Emily continued to flourish in Mr. Thompson's group, composing her own pieces and even leading a small ensemble. The music they created was vibrant and soulful, a testament to their collective talents unbound by prejudice. One day after rehearsal, Mr. Thompson gathered the students. "I've been contacted by a local radio station interested in featuring our group," he announced. Excitement rippled through the room. "Really?" Carlos exclaimed. "That's amazing!" "Indeed," Mr. Thompson smiled. "It's a great opportunity to share your music with a wider audience." Emily felt a thrill of pride. "When is it?" "Next month. We have some time to prepare," he replied. As they dispersed, Emily lingered behind. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson." He looked at her kindly. "For what?" "For believing in us, for giving us this chance." He shook his head. "You earned it. Your passion and resilience are inspiring." She smiled. "I couldn't have done it without everyone's support." "Remember, Emily," he said gently, "the music comes from within. No one can take that away from you." That night, as Emily sat by her bedroom window, she gazed out at the city lights. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she no longer felt alone. With her family, friends, and newfound community by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She picked up her violin and began to play a melody of her own creation, a haunting tune that echoed the struggles and hopes of her Jew. The sun cast long shadows across the living room as the Johnson family gathered around the worn oak coffee table. Michael leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, rubbing his temples. "We've spoken to over a dozen families now," he said. "Each one has a similar story, but the school administration keeps brushing us off." Sarah paced back and forth, her arms crossed tightly. "They claim there's no concrete evidence," she scoffed. "What more do they need? A signed confession?" Emily sat quietly in an armchair, listening to her father and aunt discuss the situation. She felt a pang of guilt. She knew they were fighting for her, but part of her wished the whole ordeal would just disappear. "Maybe we should just let it go," she murmured. Michael looked up sharply. "What did you say?" She hesitated, avoiding his gaze. "I mean, maybe it's not worth all this trouble. I can focus on Mr. Thompson's group instead." He stood up, his expression softening. "Emmy, this isn't just about the orchestra. It's about standing up against injustice." Sarah nodded in agreement. "If we don't address this, Maestro Williams will continue to discriminate against other students." Emily wrapped her arms around her knees. "I just don't want to make things worse. What if fighting back only brings more attention? What if it hurts my chances of being accepted into a good high school or college?" Michael sat beside her. "I understand your fear, but staying silent won't protect you. It will only allow the problem to continue." She looked at him, her eyes shimmering with uncertainty. "But what if no one listens? What if nothing changes?" He took her hand gently. "Then, at least we'll know we did everything we could. And sometimes that's enough to spark change." Sarah stopped pacing and sat across from them. "I think we need to consider bringing this to a higher authority, maybe even the media." Emily's eyes widened. "The media? I don't know if I want my face all over the news." Michael exchanged a glance with Sarah. "We wouldn't do anything you're not comfortable with," he assured her. "But bringing public attention to this might pressure the school district to take action." Oh, she bit her lip, weighing the options. The idea of her story being public was daunting. "Can we think about it?" she asked quietly. "Of course," Sarah said softly. "We won't rush into anything." The next day, Emily found herself back at the community center for rehearsal with Mr. Thompson's group. The atmosphere was a stark contrast to the tension at home. Laughter and friendly chatter filled the room as students unpacked their instruments. "All right, everyone, let's start with the new piece Emily composed," Mr. Thompson announced, smiling encouragingly in her direction. She felt a flush of pride mixed with nerves as the group arranged their music stands. The piece was a blend of classical motifs and contemporary rhythms, a reflection of her own journey and influences. As they began to play, the music filled the space with a rich, soulful melody. Emily closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her. For a moment, all her worries faded away. After they finished, the room erupted in applause. "It was amazing," Carlos exclaimed. "I loved the transition into the minor key." "Thanks," Emily replied, smiling genuinely. "I was inspired by some of the jazz pieces we've been listening to." Mr. Thompson approached her. "You have a real gift for composition," he said. "Have you considered applying to arts high schools with strong music programs?" She shrugged. "I thought about it, but with everything going on..." He nodded understandingly. "Don't let current obstacles deter you from pursuing your dreams." She sighed. "Easier said than done." Before he could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A group of men in suits entered the room, followed by the center's director. "Excuse me, are you in charge here?" one of the men asked, approaching Mr. Thompson. "I am," he replied cautiously. "May I help you?" The man pulled out a badge. "Detective Harris, NYPD. We received a noise complaint about unauthorized gatherings." Mr. Thompson frowned. "We've been holding rehearsals here for months with the center's permission." The director stepped forward nervously. "I wasn't aware of any issues." Emily and the other students exchanged worried glances. "We'll need to see permits and authorization forms," Detective Harris stated firmly. "This feels unnecessary," Mr. Thompson responded. "Are we being singled out for a reason?" "Just following up on a complaint," the detective said, his tone dismissive. Emily noticed the way the officers eyed the group, a mix of skepticism and thinly veiled suspicion. Most of the students were Black or Hispanic, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a routine check. "Is there a problem here?" Michael's voice cut through the tension as he entered the room. He had arrived early to pick up Emily. "And you are?" Detective Harris asked. "A parent," Michael replied, his gaze steady. "We're just ensuring that this gathering is authorized," the detective said. Michael crossed his arms. "In a community center open to the public? This seems excessive." Mr. Thompson handed over some papers. "Here are our permits and schedules, all approved by the center." Detective Harris glanced over them briefly. "Everything appears in order," he admitted reluctantly. "We'll be on our way." As the officers left, the room remained silent. The students looked shaken. "What was that all about?" Carlos asked. Mr. Thompson sighed heavily. "I'm sorry you all had to experience that." "It's not the first time," one of the students muttered. Michael placed a hand on Mr. Thompson's shoulder. "Do you think this is connected to what's happening with the orchestra?" He shook his head. "I wouldn't be surprised. Some people don't like when we create spaces where our youth can thrive." Emily felt a surge of anger. "They can't just harass us like that, can they?" "Unfortunately, they often do," Mr. Thompson replied, "but we won't let it stop us." On the drive home, Emily stared out the window, watching the city streets blur past. "Hush, why does it always have to be this way?" she whispered. Michael glanced at her. "I wish I had a good answer for you." She turned to him, her eyes fierce. Maybe going to the media isn't such a bad idea after all. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" She nodded firmly. "People need to know what's happening, not just to me, but to all of us." Michael smiled softly. "I'm proud of you." That evening they held a family meeting. Aunt Sarah had contacted a local journalist, Denise Porter, who was known for her investigative pieces on social justice issues. "Denise is willing to hear our story," Sarah explained. "She wants to meet with us and any other families who are comfortable speaking out." Emily took a deep breath. I want to do it." Mrs. Ramirez and Carlos joined them via video call. "We agree," Mrs. Ramirez said. "It's time to shine a light on this discrimination." Michael looked around the room. "All right, then let's prepare ourselves." A few days later, they met with Denise Porter at a small cafe in Harlem. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her early 40s, with a notebook always at the ready. "Thank you all for meeting with me," Denise began. "I believe your stories are important and deserve to be heard." Over the next few hours, they recounted their experiences, the subtle insults, the blatant discouragement, and the systemic barriers they faced. Emily shared her encounters with Maestro Williams, the way he made her feel invisible, and the recent incident with the police at the community center. Denise listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. "It's clear that this isn't an isolated incident," she concluded. "I want to write an in-depth piece exposing these injustices." "Do you think it will make a difference?" Emily asked. "I believe so," Denise replied confidently. "When people become aware of these issues, it puts pressure on institutions to change." True to her word, Denise's article was published the following week in a prominent newspaper, titled "Silent Strings: Racial Bias in Prestigious Youth Orchestra." It detailed the accounts of Emily, Carlos, and several other students who had faced discrimination under Maestro Williams' leadership. The article quickly gained traction, spreading across social media and sparking conversations nationwide. Hashtags like "Let Them Play" and "Music Without Bissett" began trending. The school district released a statement acknowledging the allegations and announced that they would place Maestro Williams on administrative leave pending an investigation. At school, Emily received an outpouring of support from many classmates and teachers. Jasmine hugged her tightly. "You're so brave," she said. "I'm sorry you had to go through all that." Even Claire approached her again. "I'm with you," she said earnestly. "A group of us are organizing a student petition to demand a more inclusive program." Emily felt a mix of relief and hope. "Thank you," she replied sincerely. "It means a lot." However, not all reactions were positive. Some parents and students accused Emily and the others of fabricating stories to seek attention. Anonymous messages appeared online criticizing them for playing the race card and trying to ruin a respected maestro's career. One afternoon, as Emily walked home, she noticed a group of older students trailing behind her. They whispered and laughed among themselves. "Hey, troublemaker," one of them shouted. She quickened her pace, gripping her violin case tightly. "Think you're special now?" another taunted. "Maybe you should just quit if you can't handle it." She felt her heart race, but she refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. Turning onto her street, she spotted Mr. Thompson outside the community center. Relief washed over her. "Everything okay?" he called out, noticing her distress. She nodded, though her hands trembled. "Just some people trying to intimidate me." He frowned. "I'm sorry. Do you want me to walk you home?" She managed a small smile. "I'd appreciate that." As they walked, he spoke softly. "Standing up for what's right isn't always easy. There will be those who resist change." "I didn't think it would be this hard," she admitted. "But remember, you're making a difference," he encouraged. "Already the district is taking action." She sighed. "I hope so." At home, Michael and Sarah discussed the recent backlash. "I was expecting some pushback, but this is worse than I thought," Sarah said, scrolling through the online comments. Michael rubbed his forehead. "Maybe we should have been more prepared." Emily overheard them and entered the room. "I can handle it," she said firmly. They looked at her with concern. "I won't let their negativity stop me," she continued. "We knew this wouldn't be easy." Michael smiled softly. "You're right. We're proud of you." Sarah hugged her. "Just remember, we're here for you." Days later, the school district held a meeting open to parents and students to address the situation. The auditorium was packed, tension palpable. A representative took the stage. "We take these allegations seriously," she announced. "We are committed to ensuring a safe and inclusive environment for all our students." Some parents voiced their support, while others defended Maestro Williams vehemently. "It's a pillar of the community," one parent shouted. "These are baseless accusations." Mrs. Ramirez stood up. "Our children have the right to learn without facing discrimination." The room erupted into chaos, arguments flaring. Emily felt overwhelmed, but then she saw her father step forward. "Please," Michael called out, his voice commanding attention. "Let's remember why we're here. Our children deserve better. This isn't about tearing someone down, it's about building a better environment for everyone." A hush fell over the crowd. He continued, "We all want our kids to succeed. Acknowledging there's a problem is the first step toward fixing it." The moderator regained control of the meeting, and a plan was proposed to form a committee, including parents, students, and faculty, to address issues of diversity and inclusion within the arts programs. In the weeks that followed, changes slowly began to take shape. Maestro Williams officially resigned, and a new conductor was appointed, Mrs. Reed, a passionate educator known for her commitment to inclusivity. Emily received an invitation to return to the Midtown Youth Orchestra. Unsure of how to feel, she consulted with her family. "What do you think?" she asked during dinner. "Do you want to go back?" Michael inquired. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me does, but I'm also happy with Mr. Thompson's group." Sarah chimed in, "You don't have to choose one over the other." Emily considered this. "Maybe giving it another chance wouldn't hurt," said Frederick. Her first rehearsal back with the orchestra was nerve-wracking. As she entered the familiar concert hall, she was greeted by Miss Reed. "Emily Johnson?" the conductor asked with a warm smile. "Yes," she replied timidly. "I'm so glad you're here," Miss Reed said sincerely. "I've heard wonderful things about you." Emily felt a weight lift. "Thank you." Throughout the rehearsal, Emily noticed a shift in the atmosphere. Ms. Reed was encouraging, offering constructive feedback without singling anyone out unfairly. The music flowed, and for the first time in a long while, Emily felt at ease in this space. During a break, Claire approached her. "It's good to have you back," she said genuinely. "It's good to be back," Emily replied. At the end of the session, Miss Reed gathered the orchestra. "I want to acknowledge the efforts many of you have made to promote inclusivity," she said. "Music is a universal language, and everyone deserves to have their voice heard." Applause filled the hall. Emily glanced around, seeing faces of different backgrounds united by their shared passion. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. That evening, back at home, Emily reflected on everything that had transpired, the challenges, the fear, the courage it took to stand up. All of it had led to this moment. She joined her father and aunt in the living room. "I think things are going to be better now," she said softly. Michael smiled. "I think so too." Sarah raised a glass of iced tea. "To Emily, for her strength and for being a catalyst for change." They clinked glasses, a quiet celebration of victories both big and small. Emily felt a surge of hope. There would still be obstacles ahead, but she knew she didn't have to face them alone. With her family, friends, and community by her side, she was ready to embrace the future. She pulled out her violin and began to play, a melody of resilience and newfound optimism. The notes filled the room, weaving together the threads of her journey into a tapestry of sound. As the last note lingered in the air, Emily looked up to see her father and aunt watching her with pride. "That was beautiful," Michael whispered. "What's it called?" Sarah asked. Emily smiled. "I'm thinking of calling it Awakening." "Perfect," her father agreed. In that moment, Emily knew that her music had the power not just to express her own story, but to inspire others as well, and that was a harmony worth striving for. The crisp winter air nipped at Emily's cheeks as she hurried down the bustling streets of Manhattan. Snowflakes danced lightly around her, coating the city in a fresh blanket of white. Clutching her violin case tightly, she made her way to the community center for rehearsal with Mr. Thompson's group. Despite the cold, a warmth filled her chest, a renewed sense of purpose propelling her forward. Inside this center, the atmosphere was lively. The students chatted excitedly about the upcoming performance at the local radio station, their first public showcase as an ensemble. Instruments were being tuned, sheet music arranged, and a buzz of anticipation hung in the air. "Emily, over here!" Carlos waved her over to a cluster of students huddled around a table. She joined them, smiling. We were just talking about the set list for the performance," Jasmine said, her flute in hand. "We thought it would be great to include your original piece, Awakening." Emily's eyes widened. "Really? You think it's good enough?" "Absolutely," Carlos affirmed. "It's powerful and represents what we've all been through." The others nodded in agreement. Mr. Thompson approached the group. "I think it's a wonderful idea," he said. "Emily's composition embodies the spirit of resilience and unity we strive for." Emily felt a flush of pride and a flicker of nervousness. "I'd be honored," she said softly. "Great. Let's run through it during rehearsal today," Mr. Thompson announced. As they prepared, Emily looked around at her friends. Each one of them had faced their own challenges, yet here they were, coming together through music. She realized how much this group meant to her, a sanctuary where talent was nurtured, regardless of background. Rehearsal flowed smoothly. When it came time to play Awakening, the ensemble poured their hearts into the music. The melody swelled with emotion, capturing the highs and lows of their shared journey. As the final note resonated, a moment of silence filled the room before it erupted into applause. "That was incredible!" Jasmine exclaimed. "You're a natural leader, Emily," Mr. Thompson praised. "You conducted that beautifully." She beamed. "Thank you. Everyone played their parts perfectly." As they packed up for the day, Mr. Thompson gathered the group for an announcement. "I have some exciting news," he began. "A renowned music producer, Ms. Angela Carter, heard about our upcoming performance and wants to meet with us." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the ensemble. "Miss Carter?" Carlos echoed in disbelief. "She's worked with some of the biggest names in music." "Indeed," Mr. Thompson confirmed. "She believes in supporting young, diverse talent and is interested in potentially collaborating with us." Emily exchanged astonished glances with her friends. This opportunity could elevate their platform and spread their message even further. "She'll be attending our radio performance," Mr. Thompson continued, "so let's give it our all." At home, Emily shared the news with her father and aunt over dinner. "That's phenomenal," Michael exclaimed, setting down his fork. "I'm so proud of you." "An opportunity like this could open so many doors," Sarah added enthusiastically. "You must be thrilled." "I am," Emily admitted, though a hint of apprehension clouded her eyes. "But it's also a bit overwhelming." Michael reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "It's normal to feel that way, but remember, you deserve this. You've worked hard." She smiled gratefully. "Thanks, Dad." "Have you thought about what this could mean for your future?" Sarah asked. "Actually, it made me consider applying to music conservatories for high school," Emily revealed. "I want to keep growing as a musician." "That's wonderful," Sarah clapped her hands together. "We'll help you with applications and auditions." Michael nodded. Absolutely, whatever you need. The day of the radio performance arrived quickly. The ensemble gathered at the station, nerves and excitement palpable among them. The studio was a hive of activity, technicians adjusting microphones, producers coordinating schedules, and the hum of equipment filling the air. Mrs. Angela Carter arrived shortly before they were set to go on. A striking woman with a commanding presence, she greeted them warmly. "It's a pleasure to meet all of you," she said, her eyes shining with genuine interest. "I've heard great things." "We're honored you're here," Mr. Thompson replied on behalf of the group. As they took their places in the studio, Emily felt a surge of confidence. She glanced at her friends, each one ready to share their music with the world. The host introduced them. "Today, we have a special treat. Please welcome the Harlem Youth Ensemble, performing an original piece titled Awakening, composed by their own Emily Johnson." The red light above the studio door lit up, signaling they were live on air. Emily raised her bow, and with a deep breath, they began. The music flowed seamlessly, each note intertwining with the next. Listeners across the city and those streaming online were captivated by the rich tapestry of sound. The piece was both haunting and uplifting, reflecting the complexity of their experiences. As they concluded, the studio erupted in applause from the crew and guests. "That was stunning," the host praised. "Thank you for sharing your talent with us." Mrs. Carter approached them as they exited the studio. "You all were spectacular," she said sincerely. "Emily, your composition is exceptional." "Thank you," Emily replied, her cheeks flushing. "I see great potential in this group," Ms. Carter continued. "I'd love to discuss the possibility of working together on a larger project, perhaps recording an album." Eyes widened around the circle. "An album?" Carlos repeated incredulously. "Yes," she affirmed. "Music like yours deserves a wider audience. Think of how many people you could inspire." Mr. Thompson smiled proudly. "That would be an incredible opportunity for these young artists." "I'll arrange a meeting with all of you to discuss details," Ms. Carter said. "In the meantime, keep nurturing your talent." As she departed, the group buzzed with excitement. "Can you believe it?" Jasmine exclaimed, practically bouncing on her toes. Emily felt a mixture of exhilaration and disbelief. "This is beyond anything I imagined." "Dreams are becoming reality," Carlos grinned. News of the performance and Ms. Carter's interest spread quickly. At school, Emily received congratulations from classmates and teachers alike. Even those who had previously been indifferent or skeptical now looked at her with newfound respect. In music class, Mr. Patel, the math teacher who also had a passion for music, pulled her aside. "I listened to your performance on the radio," he said warmly. "You have a remarkable gift." "Thank you, Mr. Patel," she replied modestly. "Have you considered entering the statewide Young Composers Competition?" he suggested. "Your work could gain significant recognition." "I hadn't thought about it," she admitted, "but that might be a great opportunity." "I can help you with the application process if you're interested," he offered. "I'd appreciate that," Emily smiled. Meanwhile, within the Midtown Youth Orchestra, changes continued under Miss Reed's direction. She organized workshops on diversity and inclusion, inviting guest speakers and musicians from various backgrounds to share their experiences. During one such workshop, a renowned African-American violinist named Marcus Lewis spoke to the students. "Music has the power to transcend barriers," he told them, "but it's up to us to challenge the structures that limit who gets to participate." Emily felt his words resonate deeply. She approached him afterward. "Mr. Lewis, your talk was inspiring," she said. "I've faced some of those barriers myself." He looked at her thoughtfully. "I read about your story. It's brave of you to stand up like that. I just want things to be better, not just for me, but for everyone," she said earnestly. "That's the spirit we need," he encouraged. "Keep pushing forward, and if you ever need guidance, don't hesitate to reach out." "Thank you," she replied, grateful for his support. At home, Emily worked on refining her compositions, preparing for both the potential album project and the composer's competition. Late into the evenings, she pored over her sheet music, scribbling notes and trying out new melodies. One night, as she struggled with a particularly challenging section, she sighed in frustration. "Everything okay?" Michael asked, poking his head into her room. "I'm stuck," she admitted, setting down her violin. "I can't get this part to sound right." He entered the room and sat beside her. "Mind if I listen?" She played the segment, the notes halting and disjointed. He considered. "What are you trying to convey here?" "I'm aiming for a transition from uncertainty to confidence," she explained, "but it's not translating." He nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe think about a moment when you felt that shift personally. Let that feeling guide your music." She pondered his suggestion. Memories of standing up to Maestro Williams, the fear transforming into determination, surfaced in her mind. Picking up her violin again, she closed her eyes and began to play. This time, the notes flowed smoothly, capturing the essence she sought. Michael smiled. "That's it." She grinned. "Thanks, Dad. You're a good sounding board." "Anytime," he chuckled. "Though I can't carry a tune to save my life." They shared a light-hearted moment before he bade her good night. A few weeks later, the ensemble met with Miss Carter at her recording studio. The state-of-the-art facility was unlike anything they had seen before. Walls adorned with platinum records, rooms filled with sophisticated equipment. "Welcome to your new playground," Ms. Carter greeted them. "Wow," Jasmine whispered, eyes wide. She led them on a tour, explaining how the recording process would work. "We'll start with laying down individual tracks, then bring it all together," she said. "I want each of your voices to shine." Over the next several days, they dove into recording sessions. It was hard work, requiring precision and patience, but the group was invigorated by the experience. In between takes, they collaborated on songwriting, sharing ideas and experimenting with different styles. The studio became a second home, a place where creativity flourished without constraints. One afternoon, as Emily and Carlos worked on harmonizing a new piece, he turned to her. "Can you believe we're actually doing this?" he asked, a note of wonder in his voice. "Sometimes it feels like a dream," she admitted, "but then I remember all the effort we've put in to get here." "Do you ever think about how things might have been if we hadn't stood up against Maestro Williams?" he mused. "All the time," she replied. "It wasn't easy, but it led us to this moment. And hopefully, it paves the way for others," Carlos added. "That's the goal," Emily nodded. As the album neared completion, Miss Carter approached them with another proposition. "How would you all feel about performing at the Unity Music Festival next month?" she asked during a meeting. The students exchanged excited glances. "The Unity Festival," Jasmine gasped. "That's a huge event." "Exactly," Ms. Carter smiled. "It's the perfect platform to showcase your talent and your message." "We'd love to," Emily exclaimed, met with enthusiastic agreement from the others. Fantastic. I'll handle the arrangements, Miss Carter confirmed. I believe this could be a turning point, not just for you, but for the industry. In the lead up to the festival, media interest in the group grew. Interviews, photo shoots, and promotional appearances filled their schedules. Through it all, Emily remained grounded, keeping sight of why they started this journey. During a televised interview, the host asked, "What do you hope audiences take away from your music?" Emily responded thoughtfully, "We want people to feel inspired and to recognize the power of unity. Our music is a tapestry of our diverse experiences, and we believe that when different voices come together, something beautiful happens." "That's a powerful message," the host remarked. "Do you have advice for other young artists facing obstacles?" "Don't be afraid to speak up," Emily said firmly. "Your voice matters, and there are people out there who will support you." The day of the Unity Music Festival arrived. Standing backstage, Emily felt a mix of nerves and excitement. The roar of the crowd echoed around them. Thousands of people gathered to celebrate music and togetherness. Miss Carter joined them. "Remember, you're here because you earned it," she reminded them. "Go out there and share your gift." Mr. Thompson appeared as well, offering his unwavering support. "No matter what, I'm proud of you all," he said. As they took the stage, the sight was awe-inspiring. A sea of faces stretched out before them, the energy electric. Emily stepped up to the microphone. "Good afternoon, everyone," she greeted. "We are the Harlem Youth Ensemble, and we're honored to be here today." Cheers and applause erupted. "We'd like to start with a piece called Awakening," she continued. "It's about finding strength in adversity and the beauty of coming together." They began to play, and the music soared. The audience was captivated, swaying to the rhythm, the message resonating deeply. By the time they concluded, the crowd was on their feet, the applause thunderous. As they exited the stage, emotions ran high. "It was incredible," Jasmine exclaimed, tears of joy in her eyes. "We did it," Carlos said, embracing Emily. "Yes, we did," she agreed, her heart full. In the aftermath of the festival, the ensemble's impact was undeniable. Messages poured in from people inspired by their story and their music. They had become a beacon for young artists everywhere, demonstrating what could be achieved through persistence and solidarity. At home, the Johnson family reflected on how far they'd come. "Did you ever imagine this is where we'd be a year ago?" Emily asked her father and aunt as they sat together. "Honestly, no," Michael admitted with a chuckle, "but I'm grateful for every step of the journey." "Your courage set all of this in motion," Sarah pointed out. "You chose to make a difference." Emily smiled softly. "I couldn't have done it without your support." "We're a team," Michael said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. One evening, Emily received a letter in the mail. Carefully opening it, she scanned the contents before gasping. "What is it?" Sarah asked eagerly. "I've been accepted into the City Conservatory High School," Emily announced, her face alight with excitement. "That's amazing," Michael exclaimed, pulling her into a hug. "Congratulations, sweetheart," Sarah added, her eyes shining with pride. Emily felt a sense of fulfillment. The path ahead was bright, and she was ready to embrace it fully. "Here's to new beginnings," she said, raising an imaginary glass. "To new beginnings," her family echoed. As Emily prepared for the next chapter of her life, she remained committed to using her music as a force for positive change. She knew challenges would still arise, but with the lessons she'd learned and the support of those around her, she felt equipped to face them. Standing by her bedroom window one night, violin in hand, she gazed out at the city that had been both a backdrop to her struggles and a canvas for her triumphs. Raising the instrument to her chin, she began to play a new melody, one that spoke of hope, resilience, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. In that moment, Emily understood that her journey was not just her own. It was part of a larger symphony, a shared narrative of those who dared to dream and strive for a more inclusive world, and she was determined to keep contributing her voice to that ever-evolving composition. The warm hues of autumn leaves greeted Emily as she stepped through the grand doors of the City Conservatory High School. The building, with its towering columns and intricate architecture, radiated a sense of history and prestige. Students hurried through the corridors, their laughter and conversations blending into a harmonious background hum. Emily took a deep breath, clutching her schedule tightly, a mix of excitement and nerves fluttering in her stomach. Her first class was Advanced Music Theory, held in a spacious room with tall windows overlooking the campus gardens. As she settled into a seat, a friendly face appeared beside her. "Hey, mind if I sit here?" asked a boy with tousled brown hair and bright green eyes. "Not at all," Emily replied with a smile. "I'm Noah," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "Emily." "I've heard about you," Noah said, his eyes lighting up. "You're the composer from the Harlem Youth Ensemble, right?" Emily felt a slight blush. "Yes, that's me." "Your piece, Awakening, was incredible," he continued. "I saw your performance at the Unity Music Festival." "Thank you," she answered, genuinely touched. It was an unforgettable experience. Their conversation was interrupted as the professor began the lecture, delving into complex musical structures and compositional techniques. Emily found herself absorbed in the material, eager to expand her knowledge. After class, Noah caught up with her in the hallway. "A group of us are getting together later to jam and share compositions. You should join us." She hesitated for a moment. "I'd love to, but I have a rehearsal with my ensemble this evening." "Oh, right. Your group is prepping for your album release, aren't you?" "Yes, the launch is next month," Emily confirmed. "That's exciting. Maybe another time then." "Definitely," she agreed. "I'd like that." Over the next few weeks, Emily settled into a routine, balancing her coursework at the conservatory with rehearsals and promotional events for the ensemble's album. The environment at the conservatory was both invigorating and demanding. Surrounded by talented peers, she felt inspired, but also the pressure to excel. One afternoon, as she practiced in one of the conservatory's rehearsal rooms, she noticed a flyer on the bulletin board: International Youth Music Exchange Program, applications now open. Intrigued, she read further. The program offered a semester abroad at a prestigious music academy in Vienna, an opportunity to study under world-renowned maestros and immerse herself in the rich musical heritage of Europe. Emily's heart quickened. Studying in Vienna had always been a dream. She grabbed an application form, contemplating the possibilities. At the ensemble's next rehearsal, she shared the news with her friends. "Vienna? That's amazing!" Jasmine exclaimed. "You have to apply." "It does sound incredible," Emily admitted, "but it would mean being away for a whole semester." Carlos furrowed his brow. "What about our upcoming tour? We'd miss you." "I know," she sighed. "That's what I'm struggling with. I don't want to let the group down." Mr. Thompson joined the conversation. Emily, opportunities like this are rare. It's important to consider your personal growth as well. You think I should go for it? She asked. I think you owe it to yourself to explore all your options, he replied kindly. We'll support you no matter what. Emily nodded, still weighing the decision. Back at home, she discussed it with her father and aunt. Vienna is a long way from New York, Michael mused, but it's an incredible opportunity. Sarah agreed. Studying abroad could broaden your horizons in ways you can't even imagine. But I'd miss you both, Emily said softly. We'll miss you too, Michael assured her, but we want you to pursue your dreams. Emily smiled, feeling the warmth of their unconditional support. As the application deadline approached, Emily poured herself into preparing her submission. She selected her best compositions, wrote essays about her musical journey, and obtained glowing recommendations from her teachers and mentors. Meanwhile, the ensemble's album was released to critical acclaim. Reviews highlighted their fresh sound and powerful message, praising Emily's compositions in particular. Their music began to receive airplay on major radio stations, and they were invited to perform on a popular late-night talk show. During the group's appearance on the show, the host asked, "With all this success, what's next for the Harlem Youth Ensemble?" Emily glanced at her friends before replying, "We hope to continue making music that resonates with people and promotes unity. We believe in the power of music to inspire change." The audience applauded enthusiastically. One evening, as Emily returned from a busy day of classes and press engagements, she found an envelope addressed to her in the mail. Recognizing the emblem of the exchange program on the corner, her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Dear Emily Johnson, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into the International Youth Music Exchange Program. She gasped, barely able to contain her excitement. Bursting into the living room, she waved the letter triumphantly. "I got in," she exclaimed. Michael and Sarah cheered, embracing her. "We knew you could do it," Sarah beamed. "This calls for a celebration," Michael declared. As the initial excitement settled, practical considerations came to the forefront. Emily needed to coordinate her departure, arrange housing in Vienna, and, most importantly, discuss her plans with the ensemble. At their next rehearsal, she gathered her friends. "I have some news," she began hesitantly. "I've been accepted into a music exchange program in Vienna." A moment of silence followed. "Wow," Jasmine finally said. "That's amazing." "Congratulations," Carlos added, though his tone was subdued. "I know the timing isn't ideal," Emily acknowledged, "especially with the tour coming up." Mr. Thompson stepped forward. "Emily, we're thrilled for you. This is a fantastic opportunity." "Thanks," she said softly. "I just don't want to let the group down." Carlos spoke earnestly. "We'll miss you, but we understand. You have to seize this chance." "Maybe we can find a way to make it work," Jasmine suggested. "You could rejoin us after the semester." "That's a great idea," Emily agreed, relief washing over her. They spent the rest of the rehearsal discussing plans to ensure the ensemble continued to thrive in her absence. The weeks leading up to her departure flew by. Emily immersed herself in preparations, both for Vienna and for helping the ensemble adjust. She trained a fellow violinist to take over her parts temporarily and participated in as many performances as possible before leaving. One afternoon, Noah approached her after class. "Hey, I heard you're heading to Vienna," he said. "Word travels fast." She smiled. "I wanted to wish you luck," he said sincerely. "And maybe I'll stay in touch?" "Of course," she replied. "I'd like that." He handed her a small notebook. "I thought you might like this. A composition journal for all the new pieces you'll create abroad." Touched, she accepted the gift. "Thank you, Noah. That's really thoughtful." Soon, the day arrived for her to depart. At the airport, surrounded by her family and friends, Emily felt a mixture of excitement and sadness. "Take care of yourself," Michael said, hugging her tightly. "Send us lots of pictures," Sarah added, wiping away a tear. "I will," Emily promised. Jasmine and Carlos gave her a group hug. "Don't forget about us when you're a famous composer," Carlos teased. "Never," Emily laughed. "I'll be back before you know it." As she boarded the plane, Emily looked back one last time, waving to her loved ones. She settled into her seat, the enormity of the adventure ahead sinking in. Arriving in Vienna, Emily was immediately struck by the city's beauty. Historic buildings lined cobblestone streets, and the air was filled with the sound of musicians performing in public squares. At the academy, she was welcomed by the program coordinator, a kind woman named Frau Müller. "Welcome, Emily," she greeted warmly. "We're delighted to have you here." "Thank you," Emily replied, taking in the grandeur of the academy's interior. Over the next few days, she met fellow students from around the world. In her new classes, she was introduced to advanced techniques and exposed to diverse musical traditions. One evening, while exploring the city's vibrant art scene, she attended a chamber music concert at a renowned hall. The performance was breathtaking, and Emily felt inspired to create new compositions. She began filling the notebook Noah had given her with melodies influenced by her experiences in Vienna. The city's rich cultural tapestry fueled her creativity in ways she hadn't anticipated. Despite the excitement, Emily also faced challenges. The rigorous program demanded a high level of discipline, and at times she struggled to keep up. She missed her family and friends and occasionally felt isolated. One day, after a particularly tough critique in her composition masterclass, she sat alone in a cafe, feeling disheartened. As she sipped her tea, a fellow student approached. "Mind if I join you?" asked a girl with short curly hair and a friendly smile. "Not at all," Emily replied. "I'm Sophia," she introduced herself. "I noticed you in class today. Professor Reinhardt can be tough." "That's an understatement," Emily sighed. "Means well, but his standards are intense," Sophia sympathized. "Don't take it too personally." "Thanks," Emily said. "I'm Emily, by the way." They struck up a conversation, and Emily learned that Sophia was from Italy, specializing in piano performance. They bonded over shared challenges and aspirations. "There's a group of us who meet up to support each other's work," Sophia offered. "You should join us." "I'd like that," Emily smiled, grateful for the outreach. Joining Sophia's group provided Emily with a sense of community. They shared feedback on compositions, attended performances together, and explored Vienna's artistic landmarks. One weekend they organized a trip to the countryside for a music retreat. Surrounded by serene landscapes, Emily found renewed inspiration. Sitting by a tranquil lake, she composed a piece that blended the influences of her Harlem roots with the classical traditions she was learning. Upon returning, she mustered the courage to present her new composition in class. Professor Reinhardt listened intently as she performed. When she finished, he looked at her thoughtfully. "That was unexpected," he said. "You have a distinctive voice, Miss Johnson. Your fusion of styles is refreshing." Emily felt a surge of pride. "Thank you, Professor." "Continue to develop this direction," he encouraged. "Innovation breathes new life into music." As the semester progressed, Emily grew both as a musician and as an individual. She learned to navigate cultural differences, adapt to new teaching styles, and embrace the challenges that came her way. She maintained regular contact with her family and the ensemble. Video calls with Michael and Sarah kept her connected to home, while updates from Jasmine and Carlos made her feel involved in the group's ongoing success. One day, she received exciting news from the ensemble. They had been invited to perform at an international youth music festival in London. "That's fantastic," Emily exclaimed during their video chat. "We wish you could be there with us," Jasmine said. "Actually," Emily considered, "Vienna is just a short flight away. Maybe I could join you." "Really?" Carlos's eyes lit up. "I'll check with the academy about taking a few days," she said. With permission granted, Emily arranged to meet the ensemble in London. Reuniting with her friends was joyful, and they eagerly prepared for their performance. The festival was a grand event featuring youth ensembles from around the world. As they took the stage, Emily felt a deep sense of connection. Playing alongside her friends in an international setting was a culmination of their shared journey. After their performance, they received a standing ovation. The experience reinforced Emily's belief in the universal language of music. Returning to Vienna, Emily felt a newfound confidence. She immersed herself fully in her studies, collaborating with classmates on innovative projects. In her final presentation, she debuted a symphonic piece that encapsulated her experiences, combining the rhythms of Harlem, the melodies inspired by Vienna, and the harmonies born from diverse collaborations. The audience, including faculty and peers, received it with enthusiastic applause. Professor Reinhardt approached her afterward. "Miss Johnson, you have exceeded my expectations," he praised. "Your growth as a composer is remarkable." "Thank you, Prof," Emily replied, her heart full. As the semester drew to a close, Emily reflected on her transformative journey. She had grown not only as a musician, but also as a global citizen, forging friendships and connections that spanned continents. Packing her belongings, she felt a mix of emotions, sadness to leave, but excitement to return home and apply all she had learned. At a farewell gathering, Sophia hugged her tightly. "Stay in touch," she insisted. "Maybe we'll collaborate again someday." "I'd love that," Emily agreed. Back in New York, Emily was welcomed with open arms. Reuniting with her family and the ensemble, she shared stories and experiences from her time abroad. At a special concert, she presented her new compositions, incorporating the global influences she had absorbed. The audience was captivated, and her music resonated deeply. Michael watched proudly from the audience, turning to Sarah. "She's come so far." "Indeed," Sarah nodded. "The world is opening up for her." As Emily looked out at the crowd, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Her journey had been filled with challenges and triumphs, each shaping her into the person and musician she had become. She realized that the horizons before her were limitless. With determination, support, and a passion for bridging cultures through music, she was ready to embrace whatever the future held. Standing on the stage, violin in hand, she began a new piece, a melody that spoke of unity, resilience, and the interconnectedness of all people. The notes floated into the air, carrying with them a message of hope and the promise of new beginnings. The gentle hum of the subway accompanied Emily as she journeyed uptown, the familiar rhythm a comforting backdrop to her thoughts. She glanced at the violin case resting on her lap, its polished surface reflecting the muted lights of the train carriage. The events of the past year swirled in her mind. a tapestry of challenges, growth, and unforgettable experiences. As the train approached her stop, she stood, bracing herself as it slowed. Stepping onto the platform, she was greeted by the vibrant sights and sounds of Harlem. It felt good to be home. At the community center, the ensemble was gathered for their first rehearsal since her return. The room buzzed with energy as musicians warmed up, laughter and conversation filling the air. Emily spotted Jasmine and Carlos setting up their music stands and hurried over. "Look who's back!" Jasmine exclaimed, embracing her tightly. "Welcome home!" Carlos grinned, giving her a high five. "It's great to see you both," Emily smiled. "I've missed this." Mr. Thompson approached with a welcoming nod. "Emily, we're thrilled to have you back. How was Vienna?" "Incredible," she replied. "I learned so much and met amazing people, but there's nothing like playing with all of you." "Well, we have an exciting project ahead," Mr. Thompson announced. "We've been invited to perform at the centennial celebration of the Harlem Cultural Festival." Eyes widened around the room. "That's a historic event," Jasmine gasped. "An honor to be part of it." "Indeed," Mr. Thompson affirmed. "We'll have the opportunity to showcase not only our music, but also the rich heritage of our community." Emily felt a spark of inspiration. "Perhaps we can create a new piece that honors Harlem's legacy." "It's a fantastic idea," Carlos agreed, "combining traditional influences with our contemporary style." "Let's collaborate," Jasmine suggested. "Everyone can contribute." Mr. Thompson beamed. "I love the enthusiasm. Let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, the ensemble immersed themselves in the creative process. They delved into the history of Harlem, drawing inspiration from jazz legends, poets, and civil rights activists who had shaped the neighborhood's identity. Emily found herself poring over old recordings, the soulful melodies and poignant lyrics resonating deeply. She spent hours composing, weaving together themes that paid homage to the past while offering a fresh perspective. One afternoon, as the group gathered to share their ideas, Carlos presented a rhythmic motif inspired by African drumming traditions. "This beat symbolizes the heartbeat of our community," he explained. "It's persistent and unifying." Jasmine added a melodic flute line, its airy tones evoking a sense of hope and aspiration. Together, they began to build the piece, layer by layer, note by note. Each member contributed, infusing their unique voice into the composition. They decided to title the piece Echoes of Harlem. While the ensemble prepared for the festival, Emily also tackled new challenges. She had been accepted into a prestigious mentorship program, led by none other than Marcus Lewis, the renowned violinist she had met during the diversity workshop at the Midtown Youth Orchestra. Their first meeting was scheduled at a chic cafe downtown. Emily arrived early, sipping on herbal tea as she waited. When Marcus entered, his warm smile immediately put her at ease. "Emily, it's great to see you again," he greeted, shaking her hand. "Thank you for this opportunity," she replied earnestly. "I'm impressed with your journey," Marcus said. "You're not only a talented musician, but also an advocate for change." "I've been fortunate to have support along the way," she acknowledged. "I want to pay it forward." They discussed her goals, aspirations, and the obstacles she still faced. Marcus offered guidance on navigating the professional music world, emphasizing the importance of staying true to oneself. "Remember, your voice is unique," he advised. "Don't let anyone diminish it." As the mentorship progressed, Marcus invited Emily to attend a recording session for his upcoming album. Observing him in action was a masterclass in musicality and professionalism. During a break, Marcus introduced her to members of his ensemble. "This is Emily Johnson, a remarkable young violinist and composer," he said proudly. They welcomed her warmly, and soon she was engaging in lively discussions about technique, composition, and the evolving landscape of music. One of the musicians, a pianist named Lena, shared her own experiences as a woman in the industry. "It's not always easy," Lena admitted, "but support from peers makes a world of difference." Emily felt a kinship with her. "I've learned that building a community is essential." "Exactly," Lena agreed. "We rise by lifting others." Back in Harlem, the ensemble faced an unexpected challenge. The community center where they rehearsed was slated to be closed due to budget cuts and redevelopment plans. "This can't be happening," Jasmine exclaimed, frustration evident in her voice. "This place is our home." Mr. Thompson gathered them for an emergency meeting. "I've just received the notice," he said solemnly. "Unless we can mobilize support, the center will be shut down next month." Emily felt a surge of determination. "We can't let this happen. The center is vital for so many people." "Agreed," Carlos nodded. "What can we do?" Mr. Thompson sighed. "We can petition, reach out to local officials, and raise public awareness." "Let's organize a benefit concert," Emily proposed. "We can showcase the importance of the center through our music." "That's a wonderful idea," Mr. Thompson agreed, "but time is short." "We'll make it happen," Jasmine declared. "We have to." The ensemble sprang into action. They spread the word through social media, flyered neighborhoods, and reached out to local businesses for support. Emily contacted Miss Carter and Marcus Lewis, who both pledged their assistance. The concert, titled Harmony for Harlem, was scheduled at a historic theater known for hosting community events. On the night of the performance, the venue was filled to capacity. Emily stood backstage, a mixture of anxiety and hope swirling within her. She looked at her friends, all of whom had poured their hearts into making this event a reality. "Ready?" Carlos asked, offering a reassuring smile. She took a deep breath. "Ready?" They took the stage to a roaring applause. Emily stepped forward to address the audience. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began. "The Harlem Community Center is more than just a building. It's a sanctuary, a place where dreams are nurtured and voices are heard. Tonight, we play not just for ourselves, but for the future of our community." The audience responded with enthusiastic cheers. They opened with Echoes of Harlem, their new composition. The music filled the theater, a powerful tribute that celebrated the richness of their heritage and the resilience of their community. As the final notes lingered in the air, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. In the days that followed, the concert's impact became evident. Media outlets covered the story, highlighting the ensemble's efforts to save the community center. Public pressure mounted, and local officials took notice. At a council meeting, Emily and Mr. Thompson presented their case. "The community center is a vital resource," Mr. Thompson emphasized. "It provides programs that keep youth engaged, inspired, and off the streets." Emily added, "It's where I found my voice and realized the power of music to affect change. Closing it would be a loss not just to us, but to future generations." After deliberation, the council announced that funding would be restored and the redevelopment plans adjusted to preserve the center. Tears erupted in the council chamber. Emily and Mr. Thompson embraced, relief and joy washing over them. With the crisis averted, the ensemble refocused on the upcoming Harlem Cultural Festival performance. Their story had garnered widespread attention, and anticipation for their appearance was high. On the day of the festival, the streets of Harlem were alive with festivities, food vendors, art exhibits, and stages showcasing a diverse array of talent. Backstage, Emily took a moment to absorb the atmosphere. The sun cast a warm glow over the park, and the sounds of celebration filled the air. Marcus Lewis approached her with a proud smile. "You continue to impress me," he said. "Your leadership is making a real difference." "Thank you," she replied. "But it's a team effort. We couldn't have done it without everyone's support." "Humility will take you far," he noted. "Now, go out there and shine." As the ensemble took the stage, Emily felt a surge of excitement. The crowd stretched out before them, a tapestry of faces reflecting the vibrant spirit of Harlem. She stepped up to the microphone. "It's an honor to be here today," she began. "This festival celebrates the heart and soul of our community. We'd like to share a piece that embodies our journey and the legacy of those who came before us." They launched into the performance, the music weaving stories of struggle, triumph, love, and unity. The audience was captivated, swaying to the rhythms and connecting with the emotions conveyed. Midway through the piece, guest musicians Marcus Lewis, Lena, and others joined them on stage, adding layers of richness to the sound. The collaboration elevated the performance to new heights. As they played the final notes, a profound silence hung in the air before the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Emily looked around at her friends and mentors, a deep sense of fulfillment settling over her. This was more than a performance. It was a manifestation of everything they believed in. In the aftermath of the festival, opportunities blossomed. The ensemble was invited to participate in national tours, educational outreach programs, and even global initiatives promoting cultural exchange through music. Emily found herself at a crossroads, contemplating the path ahead. One evening, she sat with her father and aunt on their apartment's rooftop, the city lights twinkling around them. "You've achieved so much," Michael said, pride evident in his voice. "What do you envision next?" "I want to continue composing and performing," Emily mused. "But I also feel drawn to education, creating programs that make the arts accessible to marginalized communities." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "You've seen firsthand the impact that opportunities and mentorship can have." "Exactly," Emily agreed. "I want to help others find their voice, just as I've found mine." Michael smiled. "Whatever path you choose, we'll support you." "Thanks, Dad," she replied softly. There's also something else I've been considering." "What's that?" Sarah prompted. "I've been offered a scholarship to attend the Juilliard School," Emily revealed. "It's a dream come true, but it would mean balancing studies with my commitments to the ensemble and community projects." "That's an incredible opportunity," Michael exclaimed, "but it's a lot to juggle." "I know," Emily acknowledged. "I need to find a way to make it all work." Seeking guidance, Emily arranged a meeting with Miss Carter. "You've come a long way," Miss Carter remarked, "and now you're facing new choices." "Yes," Emily sighed. "I don't want to let anyone down, but I also want to continue growing." "Life is about balance," Ms. Carter advised. "It's okay to prioritize your personal development. In fact, it will enhance your ability to contribute meaningfully to others." "Do you think I can handle it all?" Emily asked. "I have no doubt," Ms. Carter smiled. "You have the passion and the drive. Plus, you don't have to do it alone. Lean on your support network." Emily felt reassured. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." At the next ensemble meeting, Emily shared her news. "I'm thrilled for you," Jasmine said sincerely. "Juilliard is huge." "We'll manage," Carlos added. "We've learned to adapt, and your growth benefits all of us." Mr. Thompson concurred. "We'll adjust our schedules, and perhaps this is an opportunity for others to step into leadership roles when needed." "Agreed," Emily nodded. "I want us to continue thriving together." With a plan in place, Emily embarked on her studies at Juilliard. The environment was intense and competitive, pushing her to refine her skills further. She embraced the challenges, knowing they would enhance her artistry. Meanwhile, she remained actively involved with the ensemble, attending rehearsals and performances whenever possible. Technology helped bridge the gaps. Video calls, shared recordings, and collaborative platforms kept her connected. She also began working with local schools, establishing workshops that introduced children to music. Her initiative garnered support from the community and sponsors, expanding its reach. One afternoon, as she conducted a workshop at an elementary school, a young girl with bright eyes approached her. "Miss Emily, I want to play the violin like you," she said shyly. Emily knelt to her level. "What's your name?" "Sophia," the girl replied. "Well, Sophia, I'd be happy to teach you," Emily offered. "Music is for everyone." The girl's face lit up. "Really?" "Absolutely," Emily smiled. "With practice and passion, you can do anything." Time passed, and Emily continued to weave together her roles as student, performer, and mentor. Her influence grew, but she remained grounded, always remembering the roots that had nurtured her journey. One evening, after a successful concert at Juilliard, she met Noah in the foyer. "You were phenomenal," he praised. "Your compositions have matured so much." "Thanks," she replied. "It's been quite the journey." They caught up on life, reminiscing about their initial meeting at the Conservatory High School. "You've stayed true to yourself," Noah observed. "That's rare and admirable." "I've had good people around me," Emily acknowledged. "Speaking of which, we're organizing a collaborative concert between Juilliard and community ensembles. Interested in joining?" "Count me in," he grinned. "It sounds like an opportunity to make some magic." The collaborative concert was a resounding success, bridging gaps between institutions and communities. Emily's vision of unity through music continued to manifest, touching countless lives. As she stood on stage during the final bow, surrounded by a diverse group of musicians, she felt a profound sense of purpose. Her journey was far from over, but she embraced the unknown with confidence. Challenges would arise, but she had the tools, the support, and the spirit to navigate them. Looking out at the audience, she caught sight of her father, aunt, and friends, all beaming with pride. Emily closed her eyes briefly, offering silent gratitude. The road ahead was wide open, filled with endless possibilities, and she was ready to inspire, to create, and to lead. With her violin in hand and a melody in her heart, Emily stepped forward into the next chapter of her extraordinary story. The crisp winter air filled the streets of New York City as Emily hurried across the campus of Juilliard. Snowflakes gently descended, blanketing the city in a soft whisper of white. She clutched her violin case tightly, her breath forming delicate clouds as she exhaled. Inside, the corridors were warm and bustling, with students preparing for the end-of-semester performances. Emily's schedule had become a delicate balancing act between her studies, the Harlem Youth Ensemble, and her community initiatives. Despite the hectic pace, she felt invigorated. Each facet of her life enriched the others, weaving a complex yet harmonious tapestry. One afternoon, after an intense rehearsal for an upcoming recital, Emily received a message from Marcus Lewis. "Meet me at the Blue Note tonight at 8 p.m. I have a proposition for you." Intrigued, she arrived at the iconic jazz club, its intimate atmosphere a haven for musicians and enthusiasts alike. Marcus was seated at a corner table, a contemplative expression on his face. "Evening, Emily," he greeted as she sat down. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," she replied. "What's on your mind?" He leaned forward, his eyes earnest. "I've been invited to join a global music project, a fusion ensemble that incorporates diverse musical traditions from around the world. We're set to tour internationally, and I want you to be a part of it." Emily's eyes widened. "That sounds incredible, but—" "I know you're juggling a lot," Marcus acknowledged, "but opportunities like this don't come around often. It would be a chance to expand your horizons further." She hesitated, her mind racing. "When would the tours start?" "In 6 months," he answered. "We'd begin rehearsals next month." That evening, Emily grappled with the decision. Joining the project was a dream, but it would require significant time away from her commitments in New York. She thought of the ensemble, her students, and her studies. Seeking clarity, she reached out to Sophia in Vienna via a video call. "That's an amazing opportunity," Sophia exclaimed, "but I understand your dilemma." "I don't want to abandon my responsibilities here," Emily sighed, "but I also don't want to miss out on this chance." Sophia nodded. "Sometimes, to grow, we have to step into the unknown. Remember how you felt before coming to Vienna?" "Terrified," Emily admitted with a small laugh, "but it was one of the best decisions I ever made." "Exactly," Sophia smiled. "Perhaps this is your next leap of faith." Emily decided to discuss it with Mr. Thompson and the ensemble. After rehearsal, she gathered them together. "I have an important matter to share," she began. "I've been invited to join an international music project that would involve touring abroad." Jasmine's face lit up. "Emily, that's fantastic." "Yeah, but what does it mean for us?" Carlos asked, concern edging his voice. "It would mean I'll be away for a while," she said gently, "but I believe this could open doors for all of us in the future." Mr. Thompson placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've always been a cornerstone of this ensemble, Emily. While we'll miss you, we support your growth." "The ensemble is strong," Jasmine added. "We've faced challenges before, and will continue to thrive." Carlos nodded slowly. "Just promise you'll come back with amazing stories and new music to share." Emily smiled with relief. "You can count on it." With their blessing, Emily accepted Marcus's offer. The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. She coordinated with her professors to arrange for independent study options, ensuring she could continue her education remotely when necessary. She also organized her community programs to be sustained in her absence, appointing capable leaders to carry on the work. Noah offered to assist with the workshops. "I can help keep things running while you're away," he suggested. "Consider me your deputy." "Thank you, Noah," she replied gratefully. "That means a lot." Rehearsals for the global project began in earnest. The ensemble comprised the musicians from every corner of the globe: a sitar player from India, a drummer from Ghana, a vocalist from Brazil, and more. The fusion of their styles was both challenging and exhilarating. One of the musicians, Ashi, a kora player from Senegal, shared her thoughts during a break. "Music transcends boundaries," she mused. "We're creating something that speaks to the shared human experience." Emily nodded. It's a privilege to be part of this. I feel like we're weaving a tapestry of cultures." As they collaborated, Emily introduced elements from her Harlem roots, blending seamlessly with the other traditions. The result was a unique sound that defied categorization. Meanwhile, back in New York, the Harlem Youth Ensemble prepared for a prestigious national competition. Jasmine took on a leadership role, guiding the group with confidence. During a video call, she updated Emily. "The ensemble is doing great. We've been experimenting with new pieces inspired by your community workshops." "That's wonderful," Emily beamed. "I'm so proud of you all." "We miss you though," Jasmine admitted. "I miss you too," Emily said softly. "But I know you're all shining bright." As the international tour approached, Emily found herself in London once again. Walking along the Thames, she reflected on how far she had come since her initial visit with the ensemble. The city's skyline was dotted with familiar landmarks, yet this time she felt a deeper connection, a sense of belonging to the global community. Their first performance was at the Royal Albert Hall. The grandeur of the venue was matched only by the anticipation of the audience. Backstage, there was a hum of excitement mixed with nerves. Marcus gathered the group. "Tonight, we share with the world what we've created together. Let the music speak for itself." The performance was electrifying. The fusion of rhythms, melodies, and harmonies took the audience on a journey across continents. Emily's solo intertwined motifs from her previous compositions with new influences, showcasing her evolution as an artist. The ovation at the end was thunderous. Emily stood beside her fellow musicians, a profound sense of unity enveloping them. The tour continued through Europe, Asia, and Africa. Each location brought new experiences and inspirations. In Tokyo, they collaborated with a traditional taiko drumming group. In Cape Town, they participated in a music outreach program for local youth. In Mumbai, after a vibrant performance, Emily received a message from Sophia. "Heard about your tour. Any chance you'll pass through Vienna?" Emily smiled as she replied, "We're scheduled there next month. Can't wait to catch up." Upon arriving in Vienna, memories flooded back. She met Sophia at their favorite cafe near the academy. "You look radiant," Sophia remarked, embracing her. "Touring suits me, I guess," Emily laughed. "How have you been?" "Busy but good," Sophia replied. "I've been working on a new piano concerto." They spent hours sharing stories, rekindling their friendship. "Will you come to our performance tomorrow night?" Emily asked. "Wouldn't miss it," Sophia promised. The Vienna concert was particularly special for Emily. Performing in the city where she had grown so much felt like coming full circle. During her solo, she infused the piece with emotions drawn from her journey, nostalgia, joy, and a hint of melancholy. After the show, Sophia met her backstage. "You were phenomenal," she praised. "Your music has so much depth." "Thank you," Emily said. "Being here again brings back a flood of memories." "Any chance you'd consider returning to Vienna in the future?" Sophia inquired. "Perhaps," Emily pondered. "The world feels full of possibilities right now." As the tour progressed, whispers began circulating about the project being nominated for international awards. The ensemble's unique sound was garnering critical acclaim, and offers for additional collaborations poured in. One evening, Marcus approached Emmeline with another proposal. "There's interest in recording an album," he said, "featuring compositions from each of us. I'd like you to contribute as a co-producer." Emily was taken aback. "Me? Co-produce?" You have a keen ear and a vision that resonates with our mission," he affirmed. "What do you say?" She smiled broadly. "I would be honored." The recording process was intensive but rewarding. Emily found herself delving into new aspects of music production, learning from seasoned professionals while sharing her own insights. During a session, Aisha shared a reflection. "Our music is not just entertainment. It's a message of unity, resilience, and hope." "Agreed," Emily nodded. "We're ambassadors of a universal language." Back in New York, the Harlem Youth Ensemble won the national competition, a testament to their talent and hard work. Jasmine sent Emily a triumphant message. "We did it. Your belief in us paved the way." Emily replied with heartfelt congratulations. "So proud of you all. Keep reaching for the stars." As the tour concluded, Emily returned home. The reunion with her family and friends was filled with warmth and joy. They celebrated not only her accomplishments, but also the ensemble's success. At a welcome back gathering, Michael raised a toast. "To Emily, who continues to inspire us with her dedication and passion." "Hear, hear," the group echoed. Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done any of this without your unwavering support." Settling back into life in New York, Emily resumed her studies at Juilliard and rejoined the Harlem Youth Ensemble. She brought with her a wealth of experiences that enriched her contributions. One day, while teaching a workshop, she noticed Sophia, the young girl she had encouraged months ago, playing a simple melody on a violin. "You're getting better every day," Emily commented. Sophia beamed. "I practiced just like you told me." "How would you like to perform at our next community concert?" Emily offered. "Really?" the girl gasped. "Yes," Emily confirmed. "It's important to share your music with others." Emily's life had become a symphony of interconnected melodies, a reflection of her journey through personal growth, community engagement, and global exploration. She understood that her path was not just about her own ambitions, but about uplifting others and fostering connections. One evening, as she stood on the rooftop of her apartment building, gazing at the city skyline, Noah joined her. "Deep in thought?" he asked. "Always," she chuckled, "just reflecting on how everything's unfolded." "You've accomplished so much," he admired. "What's next for Emily Johnson?" She took a moment before responding. "I want to continue bridging cultures through music, perhaps start a foundation to support young musicians from underrepresented communities." "Sounds like a noble venture," Noah remarked. "Count me in if you need any help." "Thanks," she smiled gratefully. "It's a big dream, but I've learned that with the right people by your side, anything is possible." Years later, Emily stood on the stage of a grand auditorium, the audience filled with dignitaries, fellow musicians, and fans from around the world. She was being honored with an international award for her contributions to music and social change. As she approached the podium to deliver her acceptance speech, she felt a wave of emotions: gratitude, humility, and a profound sense of purpose. "Thank you," she began. "This journey has been incredible, and I'm humbled by this recognition. Music has the power to transcend barriers, to heal, to inspire, and to unite us." She looked out into the audience, spotting familiar faces: her father, aunt, friends, mentors, and students. "I dedicate this award to all the voices that have yet to be heard," she continued. "May we continue to lift each other up and create a world where everyone's melody can be part of the grand symphony of humanity." The audience rose in applause, the sound echoing like a resonant chord. As Emily left the stage, she knew that her journey was far from over. New challenges and opportunities lay ahead, but she was ready. The sun cast a golden hue over the New York skyline as Emily stood in the expansive lobby of the Harmony Center, a state-of-the-art facility she had envisioned for years. The center was the realized dream of her foundation, Melodies Unbound, dedicated to nurturing young talents from underrepresented communities worldwide. The grand opening was just hours away, and a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation coursed through her veins. As guests began to arrive, the atmosphere buzzed with conversations in various languages, a testament to the global reach of Emily's work. Musicians, educators, philanthropists, and young artists filled the space, their diversity mirroring the inclusive mission of the foundation. Noah approached her with a warm smile. "You did it, Emily. The Harmony Center is incredible." She turned to him, eyes sparkling. "We did it. I couldn't have brought this vision to life without you and everyone who believed in this mission." He handed her a program booklet. "The lineup for tonight's concert is nothing short of remarkable. Young artists from all over the world coming together on one stage." Emily glanced through the booklet, her heart swelling with pride at the names listed, some of whom were students she had mentored personally over the years. The inaugural concert was set to feature a piece composed collaboratively by the young musicians residing at the center. As Emily took her seat in the front row, she reflected on the journey that had led her here. The lights dimmed, and the curtain rose to reveal the ensemble, a vibrant tapestry of cultures and traditions. The music began, a mesmerizing blend of melodies that transcended any one genre. Traditional African drums intertwined with the melancholic strains of a Chinese oud. Latin rhythms danced with Eastern European folk tunes. The audience was spellbound. Midway through the performance, a soloist stepped forward. It was Sophia, the young girl Emily had encouraged years ago, now a confident teenager. She played her violin with a passion and skill that belied her age. Emily felt tears welling in her eyes. Beside her, Mr. Thompson patted her hand gently. "You've planted seeds that are already bearing fruit," he whispered. After the concert, Emily mingled with the guests. A group of young musicians approached her, their faces alight with enthusiasm. "Mrs. Johnson, thank you for this opportunity," one of them said. "Being here has changed our lives." She smiled warmly. "The pleasure is mine. Remember, this place is as much yours as it is mine. It's a space for you to explore, create, and let your voices be heard." Another student stepped forward. "We were wondering if you'd consider leading a master class on composition." Emily laughed lightly. "I'd be honored. How about we start tomorrow afternoon?" Their excited chatter filled the air as they dispersed to share the news. Later that evening, as the festivities wound down, Emily found a quiet corner on the terrace overlooking the city. The cool night air was refreshing after the warmth of the event. Marcus Lewis joined her, 2 glasses of sparkling cider in hand. "To the success of the Harmony Center," he toasted. "Thank you, Marcus," she replied, clinking her glass with his, "for everything." He leaned on the railing beside her. "Seeing all these young talents reminds me of when we first crossed paths. You've come a long way." "So have you," she noted. "Your guidance has been invaluable." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the twinkling lights below. "What's next on your horizon?" Marcus asked. Emily pondered the question. "I've been thinking about expanding the foundation's outreach. There are so many places where access to music education is limited." He nodded thoughtfully. "Global satellite programs, perhaps?" "Exactly," she affirmed. Mobile music units, partnerships with local communities, bringing the resources directly to them. Over the next few months, Emily threw herself into developing these new initiatives. The foundation acquired retrofitted buses, miniature mobile music schools equipped with instruments, recording equipment, and learning materials. They dispatched teams to underserved areas, beginning with rural regions in the United States and extending to other countries. In one such expedition, Emily found herself in the Appalachian Mountains. She visited a small town where the local school had cut arts funding due to budget constraints. The children were curious but hesitant as the brightly painted bus rolled into their community. Emily greeted them with an inviting smile. "Who wants to make some music?" Slowly, they gathered around as she introduced them to various instruments. One boy, Lucas, was particularly drawn to an old acoustic guitar. "Go ahead," she encouraged. "Give it a try." He strummed tentatively, then with growing confidence. His eyes lit up with wonder at the sounds he created. As weeks passed, Lucas and other local children attended daily sessions at the mobile unit. Emily noticed Lucas's natural aptitude and deepening passion. One afternoon, she sat with him outside under a large oak tree. "You have a real talent, Lucas," she remarked. He shrugged shyly. I just like how it feels when I play." "Have you considered pursuing music more seriously?" she asked. He looked down. "I don't think I can. My family doesn't have the means." Emily placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Talent like yours deserves to be nurtured. If you're interested, I can help you find opportunities to develop your skills." His face brightened. "Really?" "Really," she affirmed, "but it will take dedication and hard work." "I can do it," he replied earnestly. Back in New York, Emily arranged for Lucas to attend a summer program at the Harmony Center, providing him with a full scholarship. She also worked with local organizations to establish a permanent music program in his hometown. The success of the mobile units led to increased funding and support. Media outlets began covering the impact of the foundation's work, bringing more attention to the importance of arts education. One evening, Emily received an unexpected call from the Office of the United Nations Secretary General. "Miss Johnson, we'd like to invite you to speak at the upcoming Global Youth Summit," the coordinator explained. "Your work aligns perfectly with the summit's focus on empowering youth through education and culture." Emily accepted graciously. This was an opportunity to highlight the transformative power of music on an international stage. At the summit, held in Geneva, Emily shared the podium with leaders and activists from various fields. In her speech, she emphasized the universal language of music as a tool for connection and change. "Music is more than an art form," she addressed the assembly. "It's a bridge between cultures, a beacon of hope, and a catalyst for social transformation. By investing in the creative potential of our youth, we invest in a more harmonious and understanding world." Her words resonated deeply, eliciting a standing ovation. After the session, a delegate from UNESCO approached her. "Ms. Johnson, your initiatives align with our goals of cultural preservation and education. We'd be interested in exploring a partnership." The collaboration with UNESCO marked a new chapter in Emily's mission. Together, they developed programs that not only provided music education, but also focused on preserving indigenous musical traditions at risk of disappearing. In the mountains of Peru, they worked with Quechua communities to document and teach ancient melodies to the younger generation. In Mongolia, they supported workshops on the art of throat singing. Emily traveled extensively, immersing herself in these rich cultural heritages. During a visit to a village in West Africa, she met with elders who shared their concerns about losing their musical legacy. "Our stories are carried in our songs," one elder explained. "If the songs fade, so do our histories." Emily listened thoughtfully. "We can help preserve and pass on this knowledge. Let's record the music, train the youth, and ensure these traditions endure." Amidst her global endeavors, Emily remained connected to her roots. She frequently returned to Harlem, where the community continued to thrive. The Harlem Youth Ensemble had grown in size and reputation, now serving as a beacon of inspiration for young musicians nationwide. Jasmine, now the director of the ensemble, had blossomed into a formidable leader. During one of Emily's visits, they met to catch up. "You've taken the ensemble to new heights," Emily praised. Jasmine smiled modestly. "I had a great mentor." They discussed future collaborations, including an international youth music festival that would bring together ensembles from different countries. Their vision was to celebrate diversity and foster cross-cultural friendships among young artists. As the years progressed, Emily faced new challenges, balancing her time between various projects, managing the administrative demands of the foundation, and navigating the complexities of international work sometimes left her feeling stretched thin. One particularly hectic day, she confided in Noah, "I feel like I'm being pulled in too many directions. I don't want the quality of our work to suffer." He listened attentively. "Perhaps it's time to delegate more. You've built an incredible team. Trust them to carry forward the mission." She considered his advice. "You're right. I can't do everything myself." With renewed focus, Emily restructured the foundation's leadership, appointing regional directors to oversee different initiatives. This allowed her to concentrate on strategic planning and mentorship, her true passions. One evening, Emily received a letter from Lucas, who was now attending Juilliard himself. "Dear Ms. Johnson, I wanted to thank you for believing in me. Your support changed my life. I'm composing my first symphony and hope to make you proud. With gratitude, Lucas." Tears of joy filled her eyes. Stories like Lucas's reaffirmed her purpose. In recognition of her tireless efforts, Emily was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The nomination alone was a profound honor, highlighting the significant impact of her work on promoting peace and understanding through music. During an interview with an international journalist, she was asked, "What drives you to keep expanding your initiatives?" She responded thoughtfully, "Every time I see a young person discover their voice through music, I'm reminded of why this work matters. Music has the power to heal, to connect, and to inspire change. As long as there are voices waiting to be heard, I will continue striving to create platforms for them." On a quiet night back in New York, Emily visited her father's home. They sat together on the porch, reminiscing. "You've made quite a mark on the world," he said proudly. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I hope Mom would be proud." He kissed her forehead gently. "She always believed you'd do great things. You're honoring her memory every day." Emily sighed contentedly. "I feel her with me, especially when I'm playing or helping others find their music." Her father nodded. "Music was always a part of our family. It's fitting that you're sharing that gift with the world." As the Harmony Center celebrated its 5th anniversary, Emily stood before a new generation of young musicians. "Each of you has a unique voice," she addressed them. "Embrace it, nurture it, and let it shine. The world needs your melodies." Among the students, she spotted familiar faces and new ones full of potential. The cycle of inspiration and empowerment continued. At a gala event that evening, Sophia, her old friend from Vienna, surprised her with a visit. "Emily!" Sophia exclaimed, embracing her warmly. "I wouldn't miss this for the world." "Sophia, it's wonderful to see you," Emily responded. "How have you been?" They caught up, sharing stories of their respective journeys. Sophia had become a renowned composer, her works performed by orchestras globally. "We should collaborate again," Sophia suggested, "just like old times." "I'd love that," Emily agreed. "Perhaps a piece that reflects our shared experiences, the fusion of styles and cultures." As the night drew to a close, Emily found a moment to herself on the balcony overlooking the city that had been the backdrop of her life. Noah joined her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Déjà vu," he remarked with a grin. She chuckled. Some things never changed. They clinked glasses, enjoying the comfortable silence. "And looking back, did you ever imagine your path would lead here?" he asked. "Not in my wildest dreams," she admitted. "But every step, every challenge, every triumph has brought me to this point." "And the future?" She gazed thoughtfully at the stars. "The future is an unwritten symphony, full of possibilities. I want to continue composing it, note by note, with all the people who've been part of this journey." Emily stood on the stage of the United Nations General Assembly, illuminated by a solitary spotlight. Delegates from around the world filled the hall. Holding her violin, she began to play a soulful melody, an original composition titled "Unity in Diversity." The notes intertwined, weaving a tapestry of cultural motifs she'd gathered during her travels. Her performance was met with thunderous applause. After the music faded, Emily delivered a brief but powerful speech. "Music transcends boundaries," she began. "It speaks where words fail. Let us use this universal language to build bridges and foster peace." Her message was clear and heartfelt. The assembly responded with a standing ovation, and Emily felt a profound sense of fulfillment. In the ensuing months, Emily focused on strengthening established partnerships. Her collaboration with UNESCO flourished, leading to the creation of an online platform for sharing the traditional music of indigenous peoples. This digital archive became a treasure trove of cultural heritage. She also optimized the foundation's projects to ensure their sustainability. By entrusting responsibilities to local leaders and educators, she established a network of self-sufficient programs no longer solely dependent on her involvement. The Harmony Center hosted a special concert to celebrate the foundation's achievements. Young musicians from around the world gathered to perform. Among them was Lucas, whose symphony became the centerpiece of the evening. As the orchestra played his composition, Emily watched with pride. The music reflected their shared journey, the challenges overcome, dreams realized, and hope for the future. After the concert, Emily addressed the audience. "Today, we've witnessed the power of nurturing talent and the impact it can have on individuals and communities. This is not just my success, it's our collective achievement." She announced her decision to step back from the day-to-day operations of the foundation, entrusting leadership to a new generation. "The time has come for fresh perspectives," she said. "I will always be part of this family, but it's important to give others the opportunity to lead us forward." Her decision was met with surprise but also understanding. Colleagues and friends supported her choice, recognizing that her vision had laid a strong foundation for continued growth. In a quiet moment, Noah approached her. "What will you do now?" he asked. Emily smiled softly. "I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps I'll return to composing music, or simply travel without a set agenda. It's time to explore new horizons." Packing up her office, she felt a mix of nostalgia and excitement. Sifting through photographs and mementos, she reflected on how far she'd come. A familiar melody played on the radio, the first piece she'd ever written. It reminded her that beginnings are just as important as endings. Before leaving, she wrote a letter to the members of the foundation. Dear friends, as I embark on a new chapter in my life, I want to express my deepest gratitude. Together, we've made the world a better place. Continue to inspire, create, and believe in the power of music. With love, Emily. Leaving the Harmony Center for the last time as its director, Emily felt at peace. The sun was setting, bathing the city in a golden glow. The future was wide open, and she was ready to embrace whatever it held. Thus, Emily's journey came full circle. Having ignited the spark of change, she now sought personal renewal. Her legacy would live on through those she had inspired, and unbounded melodies would resonate around the world.